And more of Cassandra Ventura's text messages are being read, which would seem to suggest she wanted to participate or was willing to participate in the freak-offs. And if that's the case, again, you could have somebody who 99% of the time will agree to sexual intercourse. The one time they say no and it's imposed against them and they're sexually assaulted, that's sexual assault. That's it. The defense is focusing a lot on her being a willing participant, either as a form to, strike at her credibility or to say, she was a part of this. How effective is this?
It could be effective, right? These text messages definitely show kind of this eagerness to participate, the desire to be in his circle, the desire to be loved by him. And so, yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, those text messages I found were to be pretty damning and to show that she wanted to be in that situation. They do have evidence of that. Now, again, I go back to this video. The video is just so helpful to show that at some point she changed her mind. If she did, in fact, originally want to be a part of the freakouts, at some point later on down the road, she did not. And exactly what you said is true. If you agree to have consensual sex 99 times and then the 100th time you say no, it is if you
Right.
are,
All right, what's up with the YouTube fam? I'm back again with another video. Now listen, I'm back again with an update on this whole Diddy trial. Cassie last day of trial is tomorrow. Now it's a whole bunch of stuff that's floating around about this situation, but basically, man, I want to say that they were into some kinky shit back in the day. Now, the reason why I'm specifying back in the day is because that's when they were in their honeymoon stage. You know how it be when you meet somebody, you think you're going to be with them for the rest of your life, you love them to death and shit like that. When in all actuality, you don't even know who the hell you're dealing with. But and that's just my thoughts and opinions on that. I really don't know, and I ain't here to pick no sides on this shit. The only thing that I don't agree with is him putting his hands on her in that highway the way that he did. That shit was so lame to me, and I'll never forgive a dude for moving like that. That shit is lame, bro. Especially if it's unprovoked. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, go, man. They got a lot of text messages floating around today. Today was a text message, email day. Boy, they was going ham. She was talking about, how much she loved him. She was ready to F right now. She was ready to get that in. She said she'll fly to him anywhere, just confessing her love to him. She also admitted to buying toys for the freak-offs. And what really just threw me for a loop was I did not know that they really genuinely were calling these things freak-offs. I thought somebody came up with it and they just been spinning that same narrative over and over and over. No, that's what they literally called them, freak offs. That shit crazy to me. But she stated she was gonna get the toys. He was eager to watch her. He said that. He said he was ready to watch her. And he said that he was gonna get one of those escorts to come over there. In the emails and the text messages and shit like that. That's crazy to me. But hey, people got their sick, twisted fantasies, and I ain't here to judge nobody for whatever the hell they want to do in their room. The only problem that I do have is when people do things that they don't want to be doing, or you're forcing someone to do things that they don't want to do. But anything else here, it's your world. Do your thing. Pop that cat. Do whatever the hell you want to do in that room. But at some point in time, you can tell that the dynamic in their relationship changed, and I don't know what it is, but you could tell that it was some domestic violence happening, and it played a major factor probably. And I can see where a lot of people are, talking about that she was groomed and shit. But at the same time, it's kind of like, damn, it's just hard to say. I don't want to put too much on it, and then it really don't be the truth because we really just don't know. We're going off of speculations, but yeah, she was saying that she was ready to mess with him raw. They had a whole lot of freaky ass text messages. She admitted to being on drugs. She admitted to him being on drugs. Said he overdosed. Said that his drugs of choice were ecstasy and Molly. I think they call Molly MDMA, if I ain't mistaken. It's just so many damn things that took place with this whole cross examination today. I do feel like that nobody knows where the hell this is going to lead to because it's so many different things coming up and so many different loopholes. You can finesse your way out of this. You can finesse your way out of that. You just never know because this is a 2-month trial, and I'm pretty sure they're just coming with the surface level of information that they have right now. They have 2 new scheduled witnesses to come up pretty soon. So they're about to come up right now. And I just want to say, man, it's going to be a long, drawn out battle when it comes to this situation right here. A couple of more text messages just basically was stating that, you know, I mean, it's kind of like repetitive. You know what I'm saying? We already know half of this shit. But let me see if I can find something that ain't been really spoke on. Yeah, man, I'm gonna just go off the top of my head because it's kind of hard to keep up with so many goddamn text messages going on. But she was finding that he was cheating. It was so many different things that was going on, and I think that Kid Cudi and her just grew that bond like a trauma bond due to the fact of how they possibly were being treated. I don't know, but yeah, we're gonna go ahead and get into this video right here because this is a text message filled day, and the young lady who has been representing this hearing from this, you know, page that I be watching and shit like that, she broke everything down. I haven't watched everything, but that's what we're here for anyway, to check it out and see what's going on. But Diddy and them was freaky as hell, and they also said that Cassie was immune to the antibiotics. They stopped working at some point in time. I feel like everybody should have been tested. Everybody should. If you're gonna freak off, you gotta freak off clean. I know this kind of contradicted, especially with them saying there's urine everywhere and all the other type of shit, but yeah, man, you gotta make sure everybody cool, bro. Real talk. But let's go ahead and get into this. I done said enough about enough. I want to know your thoughts and opinions on everything in the comment section. Let's go ahead and get into this, though.
I think even when the text messages were shown, a lot of them were very much analyzing them. A lot of them had direct focus onto the computer screen in front of them, just so that way they could read all the messages, even the more graphic, sexually explicit messages. I saw there were sometimes some jurors were doing, you know, the tennis match look, where they were either looking at Cassie, who was on the witness stand, then looking at Ana Maria Escobedo while she was asking the questions, kind of doing a back and forth. Meanwhile, some other jurors were just laser focused on Cassie and just what she had to say and how she responded to the cross-examination today. As far as Diddy goes, Diddy, just like every other day, is very much participating in his defense, very much so passing off notes to his defense attorneys to kind of hand over to Escobedo, who was standing up doing the questioning. He very much so was intently looking at either Cassie or the exhibits in front of him, especially when it came to those sexually explicit text messages, or even just the text messages and the emails back and forth with one another. And so just like every other day, Diddy is very much so participating in his defense, because as the defense has pointed out a number of times, that Cassie is a very critical witness to the case. Mark Agnifilo said she is probably the most key witness in this case, somebody that, you know, they wanted to make sure that they were doing a thorough cross-examination of her, because Diddy's life somewhat depends on this, because, you know, they were making the point that he's facing a life sentence if he's convicted, and so they wanted to make sure that they were asking every single question that they needed to ask. Do I think that was necessarily accomplished? I'm sure we'll get to that in just a second. But for the most part, as far as Diddy goes today, he was definitely participating like usual.
You mentioned the text messages. This day was filled with text messages. Elizabeth, I'm going to ask you what we learned about these text messages. I'll leave it to you how graphic you want to get about them, if they're, I mean, depending upon what the value is, but what were the text messages? What were the value of the text messages? What was the defense doing with these text messages? And by the way, emails too. So communications between Combs and Ventura. Talk to us about that.
It was going down in the phone.
Yeah, it was a lot of messages today, a lot of things that were read inside that courtroom. First starting off with messages that, first with Ana Maria Escobedo asking Cassie, so you love Diddy? She said yes. And he loved you? She said yes. You called him Sean, you knew the real Sean? And Cassie said, can you repeat? And then along the lines answered the question that, you know, she knew the Sean that other people didn't see. When they started getting into the email correspondence and text correspondence, they went all the way back to 2008. One email had said, I'm a very lucky woman, and I'm going to kind of paraphrase this email because it was a lot going on. Cassie said, I'm a very lucky woman. I miss you, and I fly wherever you needed me to. I love you. And then she signed it off, Cass. They showed a 2009 email that Diddy had written to Cassie, and this was the baby girl and the pop email correspondent and nicknames that they had for one another. Diddy said, I love you so much, it makes me cry. And then
now, if you don't know the significance of the pop stuff, they're alleging that Diddy used to make her call him that, and that's her Pawpaw's nickname. Now, if that's true, that's some sick, weird shit. But I can also see where certain people probably want certain pet names. You know what I'm saying? Say Big Daddy or something, Big Papa or something. Not the exact same damn name. That'll make me feel weird as hell. But yeah, man, you know, I just want to know when they're gonna start showing these damn videos. I'm pretty sure they was cutting up on some of them videos because they got some type of evidence. This just not it. I don't feel. You know what I'm saying? There's so much room for other shit to be happening. But let's get back into it.
Responded, "You hungry, Pop Pop?" You know, and so I think what the defense was trying to do, at least with these initial messages, is just kind of show that there was love and there was affection there. But just think about these time frames and these dates. This was around the time that the two had first started dating, and I felt like it kind of played into what she had said under her direct testimony, that she did care about Diddy, that she did love him. She's been very honest about that.
Yeah.
That the two were, that she felt like the two were in love, especially at the beginning of her relationship. There was one message from 2010. Cassie wrote, "Going to sleep so tomorrow will be faster," and kind of saying tomorrow will be faster so I can see you soon. Diddy responded, "I love you so much. I never knew it could be like this." Cassie responded, "I'm so happy. We're so in love." There was another message, this one from the year prior. Cassie saying, "I love you so much. It made me feel like I can't wait until we just don't care anymore." And Cassie was pretty much saying that this was because she wanted to be open about the relationship, because the defense was trying to point out that Cassie and Diddy, for about a 2-year period, they weren't as open with their relationship, and that Cassie essentially just wanted to be public. Again, something that kind of corroborated her under direct testimony, where she said that she just, was in love with him and just wanted to be with him at all points, all the time. A lot of just "I love you" back and forth, again, just kind of trying to establish that these two were in love, that it wasn't forced or fraud or coerced or anything like that. Then we get to a message around August 5th of 2009. Diddy asked, "When do you want to freak off?" Cassie said, "I'm ready to freak off, LOL." Diddy responded, "You tell me the date, you choose." And then I'm paraphrasing right here. She had responded, "I feel like a Friday would be best." Diddy responded, also paraphrasing here, "Friday it is. Maybe we can get Jules here." Jules was an escort that they had used very often in their freak offs, according to her testimony. He was brought up a number of times, and notably he was the escort that was inside that hotel room during the 2016 Intercontinental Hotel incident. There were other messages that went into, Diddy had a subject line that said, "What are you thinking about?" And then Cassie responded in a very kind of sexually explicit way that I'm not going to repeat on air. You could definitely feel like I was kind of peeking into what their history was like, especially in those intimate moments, and how the two would correspond about wanting to be with each other in an intimate way. And so a lot of those messages were displayed in front of the jury. The jury saw them. Us in the gallery, we saw these messages as well too. There was a 2009 email that Diddy had wrote to Cassie saying, "I want you to feel safe to let go." And Cassie wrote, "I like that. I want to give you the same. In order to be more open with the things that we do in bed, I need to feel safe like home, like this is my husband, and this is the only man that will ever have this aggressive / sexual side of me. I'm nervous. I'm just the girlfriend that you get your fantasies off with, and that I just don't get that other part." And then she wrote ... anymore, at least. And she kind of, at least to me, in my perspective, appeared a little apprehensive about doing these freak offs. She was asked by the defense, "Do you have a fear that you guys wouldn't go public," you guys being Cassie and Diddy? And she said, "I guess she thought about this." Again, this is around that 2009 time frame when the two were still kind of under wraps there. But she said that the freak offs were kind of an integral part of her relationship, and that essentially she just wanted more. There was a part where they had talked about her 21st birthday. Her 21st birthday is pretty important because that was the first time the two had kissed. That's the first time that she had kissed Diddy, because remember, she had met him 2 years prior to that time. She said that this was again at her birthday. Big names, like a name that we had seen in the People and Places list from jury selection. Dallas Austin was at her that birthday party. Britney Spears was at that birthday party, and they were all brought by Diddy. She was asked about her financial situation around that time, and she said essentially she was doing well. She was, modeling. She was doing other things, and then they kind of touched base a little bit about her prior relationship even before Diddy, and that was with a producer named Ryan Leslie. And around this time frame,
what I'm getting from that is they're trying to create some separation in between the two, basically just giving her own independence, saying that she make her own money, so she's not dependent on him. They're basically saying that, it was their first time doing this little kiss or whatever the case may be. They're just trying to say that he was basically taking things slowly to a certain extent, trying to build their trust, trying to make it be known that he wasn't trying to be no weirdo type of shit. That's what I'm getting from this. But, you know, to have a freak off with multiple people consistently is not safe, man. Real talk. Hell no. But, you know, I feel like the more we listen, the more we can see the offense and defense angle. And like Diddy and them, I can understand what they're trying to do. They're trying to establish some type of separation. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of people try to say, well, I stayed because I needed this. I stayed because I needed that. They letting it be known that she was doing all of the texts and she was setting them up and stuff like that. But she did make it very clear that she was apprehensive. You can tell that she was just kind of like, you know, iffy about doing it if they wasn't finna be strictly together 100%. But that's not to say that she wasn't going to do anything regardless. But I'm just trying to let it be known that she basically said, yeah, I'm down if we're going to be together. That's what I kind of got out of that. But, you know, it can go anyway. You know, I don't want to put a damn jacket on one part of this whole situation. But let's get back into it.
Because Cassie was still in a relationship with Ryan. At this time, the defense was trying to paint it as, you know, when you had met Ryan, he was 10 years older than you at this point of time. And I had kind of looked it up. Diddy and Ryan Leslie aren't necessarily close in age. I think Ryan Leslie's still in his mid-40s, whereas Diddy's in his mid-50s. So there's a little bit there, but I could kind of see where the defense was trying to go and trying to paint it as that you kind of get with older producers, with older men, and that could possibly kind of help you with your career. Then we saw an email from 2007 where Cassie had wrote, you know, we really had 1 week of each other just together, and I can say it's been the best and the worst. The defense asked her about her relationship with Diddy. Has it always been complicated? And she kind of affirmed that a little bit. She said she thought Diddy at first was actually more interested in her friend Carrie Morgan, somebody that's been brought up a number of times during the testimony. And so as far as a lot of these messages, part of it, when I was sitting inside the gallery today, I was kind of like, where is this going? You know, they were just reading text after text after text. It was bunches of pages to the point I think the judge was kind of like, why are we, we need to find like a better system of getting Cassie to read these messages so that way there's not a holdup, because it was just so much messages to the point where sometimes you were trying to connect the dots and wondering what's happening. And so the presentation was a little messy on my end, at least from what I could see, that I was just kind of like, where is this going? And there were just so many points that I felt like they could talk about instead of these messages, but it seemed like they wanted to get in front of these messages, provide context that Cassie was actually in love, that at times that she had set up these freak-offs even on her own, at times when even Diddy was sick. And so these messages were just all over the place, and at points I was just kind of like, where is this going? Because it really was so much. So I don't know.
It was a lot. And then you got to look at it like this too. They're going to say that, I've seen a lot of people already saying the hill, basically saying that she wanted to do these different things and stuff like that. And I can see where y'all are coming from, because she was doing her own separate little freak-offs allegedly. It's just kind of like, once you like poke a bear, you get where I'm coming from when I say what I say, right? You can awaken something that's not really a part of you. You feel what I'm saying? I can't even say that. It's kind of hard. Y'all get where the hell I'm coming from. I ain't trying to be no damn poet. You know what I'm saying? Y'all get where the hell I'm coming from. But yeah, you know, it's like you started something and it turned into something else, possibly. I'm just trying to look at everything in all type of different ways. But these witnesses that are about to come out probably will say more things that can, you know, verify what she's saying. You know, and I just feel like that another thing that's taking place with this is they're setting an example for anybody else who want to be out here moving like they are bigger than the law and things like that. It's just sad and unfortunate that so many different people were affected when it comes to this, if everything they're saying is true. Let's get back into it.
The jury felt listening to all of these today too.
Well, I'll tell you, it seemed to me they were really trying to home in on the idea that she was a willing participant in the freak-offs, and that the jury, are you really going to believe that she was essentially held captive against her will, didn't want to do any of this for years because she was under threat or coercion of Sean Combs, and highlighting messages like, I'm always ready to freak off, LOL, or baby, I want to FO so bad. You know, that's going to help their narrative and, saying she was the one who tried to set these up, or I believe there was testimony she heated up the baby oil to be used in freak-offs. But there's a part of something that you said that I thought was really interesting, where it seems to me the defense was also trying to portray her as a jealous lover, right? And go to her motivations about why she would be going after Diddy now. Talk to us about what we learned today from the cross-examination about how they tried to portray her, maybe with other interests that she had, other relationships Diddy had. How did they try to portray her as somebody who was jealous and maybe had other motives for coming after, accusing Diddy now?
Well, they definitely brought up Kim Porter a couple of times today. Kim Porter is a big name because she is the mother of a few of Diddy's children, including the twins, including Christian. And so Cassie had said that she had learned that Diddy had actually left a Freakoff to go see Kim Porter. Again, by this time, she was still the mother of his children. She admitted to being a little bit jealous of Diddy's relationship with Kim. And she said especially this kind of happened during the holiday time, because Diddy always spent the holidays with Kim Porter, with his children, something that, surprisingly, Cassie kind of mentioned that Diddy and Cassie didn't spend much time together with his children. Instead, the children were always with Kim Porter, and this was something that she was a little bit jealous of, that she wanted to be around him and see she wanted to be around him, be around his family and get all parts of him. And so, she did admit that she was a little jealous. We learned about Gina today. Gina is another central figure a little bit, and I've done a couple segments about Gina because Gina had previously gone on a podcast and spoken with a blogger talking about how her relationship with Diddy was, where she had alleged that Diddy was physically abusive with Gina. She had alleged that Diddy would refer to Cassie as the good one and Gina was the bad one. So for hearing from Cassie's perspective about the whole Gina situation, Gina was somebody that Gina was somebody that Diddy had seen while he was still with Cassie, somebody that was a focal point of, from her perspective, of the jealousy. And so Cassie had learned that Diddy was seeing Gina. Cassie learned about this because of social media. And she said that Diddy initially denied seeing Gina, but learned that he was still seeing her during a point where she had told him to stop seeing her. And she called Gina actually a main problem in their relationship. And so this was around the 2013 timeframe where Cassie said to Diddy, "You make me feel like a side piece. I'm happy with you no matter what," because Cassie thought she was the main girlfriend. She thought she was the only girlfriend. She didn't realize that he was seeing other people. She said that, not even surprisingly, she said that he had actually lost his temper when Diddy thought Cassie was cheating, but then when Cassie confronted Diddy about his cheating, it was like, deny, deny, deny. Another point of contention between their relationship was that, the two were on and off for an 11-year period. Cassie says that Diddy learned that she was seeing other people, and she said that it would get scary if he would find out these situations and then enter and segue into Kid Cudi. Surprisingly, they didn't talk about the car arson at all today through it, but it was essentially to kind of talk about how Diddy was just so hurt and just so devastated by the fact that Cassie was seeing Kid Cudi behind his back. The defense was trying to point out that Diddy was the one who actually introduced Cassie and Kid Cudi to one another because he was trying to get them in the studio together to pretty much kind of advance her career. And this was around the 2011 time frame. Diddy found out about Cassie and Kid Cudi, and she had said yesterday under direct examination that he had found out while they were in a freak-off. Cassie says it was actually her idea to use a burner phone because she didn't want Diddy to find out, again alluding to the fact that she was a little terrified and scared of what he could do, how he would respond. And she said that she began her relationship with Kid Cudi at a point where she and Diddy were actually off. They were on a break, but she began a relationship with Kid Cudi because the two were just enjoying each other's company. She said that she did admit that she was still doing freak-offs during this off period with Diddy, but then she would kind of go and hang out with Kid Cudi. Meanwhile, while all this is going on, she and Diddy are still on a break. And she again said that it was scary if he had found out she was asked if Diddy knew that Cassie and Diddy were on a break, and she said that I don't know. And then that's when the cross got a little awkward because they were trying to kind of figure out a way to kind of ask these questions. And I had mentioned this during the lunch hour today, that it was just a little weird to kind of see this cross-examination around this point, because Estevao was essentially just kind of adding or concurring with Tenny Garagos, who was sitting at the defense table. I think a lot of us were kind of questioning why Estevao was the one doing the line of questioning. You know, we understand obviously that the defense was going to use a female to ask Cassie these questions under cross, but I was just kind of like, why is she conferring so much? It seemed like she didn't know what to ask next. And so that was an interesting point that I had seen while in the courtroom today. As far as just the Kid Cudi relationship goes, you know, I had mentioned this just yesterday, that when Diddy had found out, he got a bottle or a wine bottle opener, put it in between her finger, it's in between his fingers, and lunged at her. But Cassie said that he had made no contact when he had lunged at her with the bottle opener. She said her relationship with Kid Cudi the entire time was just about a month, and she got back together with Diddy. She was asked, was the relationship offensive to Diddy because of Kid Cudi's stature in the music industry? And Cassie was kind of like, well, yeah, because Diddy wasn't cheating with other celebrities. And Cassie responded, I don't really know. The Kid Cudi relationship hurt Diddy, according to the defense, because Diddy was the one who introduced them, put them in the studio together. And so the defense was saying that Diddy brought up Kid Cudi a lot after they got back together, and he especially would become angry over the holidays, recalling the Kid Cudi relationship, because this was around the Christmas time frame of 2011. Cassie had mentioned by New Year's, the two being Kid Cudi and Cassie, were already broken up. Diddy accused Cassie of having another relationship with another man while shooting a movie, and that movie was Honey 3, and this was in South Africa. I bring back the people and places list that was talked about during jury selection. Why? Because this was when Michael B. Jordan was named, and Diddy was apparently a little annoyed by the relationship that Cassie and Michael B. Jordan were having together while they were shooting this movie. And Cassie had even said around this time that she and Diddy weren't even together when she went off to shot the movie. She broke things off. Why? Because she had seen a picture that he was still with Gina. She was sent a video about that while Diddy and Gina were seen at Revolt Fest together, because somebody thought that that was actually Cassie. And so Cassie had sent kind of a nasty message to Diddy's entire staff that she thought were family, staff that she had thought had her back. But then when seeing these pictures, knowing that this was a point of contention in their relationship, she said she got upset about it because she thought the staff was her family and thought they were kind of in on this. And so those were a lot of the focus of just the other people who kind of played a role into just the tension that was displayed in the relationship between Cassie and Diddy.
And yeah, they questioned, it seemed to me, a lot of her motivations. They brought up the November 2023 lawsuit to suggest you knew this was going to ruin his career, right? Now, there was a large section of the testimony regarding drug use, and I couldn't tell if it was to suggest that, hey, Combs isn't responsible for your drug use. You know, one of the things he's charged with, right, is alleged he used drugs to make victims more compliant, drug trafficking, one of the underlying crimes of racketeering. And I'm curious how they had that whole conversation regarding drugs. Was it just to suggest, you know, she had a drug issue herself that was her own problem? Or was it also to suggest, hey, he had a drug problem and that explains a lot of his behavior, which if I understood it correctly, is interesting, because I'm not sure I quite understood where they were going with that. I have an idea of where they were going with that, maybe to explain away some of his actions that they originally said were indefensible. So talk to us about what we know about all the drug use. What was the conversation about that? What was she questioned about?
Yeah, the drug use was also pretty prominent, especially during the afternoon portion. She was questioned, and I feel like the questioning along the lines, to your point, Jesse, was trying to paint her out to be kind of this drug addicted person during the time frame. They were questioning her. Did she use drugs when she was with Diddy? Did she use drugs without Diddy? Did she use drugs when she was with her friends? Oh, do you not remember these questions or these answers because you were addicted to drugs around that time period? And so there was a point where Cassie had said that there was a time that Diddy didn't want Cassie to do drugs, even though she still was, or even though that Diddy still was. The defense says Diddy didn't want you hanging out with a certain friend. The friend's name was Bonna. Bonna is also a pretty important name into this story. I had covered her when she had filed her civil claim against Diddy. Bonna was allegedly hung outside of a balcony by Diddy when he was going through a rage period, something that Cassie had talked about in her direct testimony to yesterday. And the defense was trying to say, well, you and Bonna, you guys did a lot of drugs together. And Cassie at this time was saying, you know, she was doing opioids. Meanwhile, Bonna, according to Cassie, provided these drugs like opioids. Meanwhile, Bonna did cocaine, according to Cassie. Cassie had said that Diddy was pretty explosive when he found out that Cassie was taking his drugs, and Diddy had actually contacted drug dealers not to give drugs to Cassie at this point. The defense was trying to paint it out that Diddy was just worried about her health and that she was taking a lot of drugs including ketamine, GHB, MDMA, ecstasy. They talked about the Cannes Film Festival trip where Diddy had squeezed Cassie's leg so hard that a bruise appeared on her whenever she was taking pictures on red carpets, and he had squeezed her leg so hard, according to Cassie, because she had taken drugs from him. And then there was an interesting point that was talked about in 2013 where the defense was saying that Diddy overdosed on drugs after a Freakoff. Diddy was hosting a party at a Playboy mansion. Cassie had to actually take him into the hospital, and that's when Cassie had learned that he had overdosed. There were a lot of points just throughout her testimony today where, again, the defense was trying to ask, do you remember when this happened? And she would respond, I don't necessarily recall. And then the defense would ask, is it because you were on drugs during this period? And she was very forthcoming. You know, I did have a problem. She did try to seek out help a couple of times, and then she just kind of went back to, again, that same kind of lifestyle. But to her point during her direct testimony, she was saying that she used these drugs to cope with just having to do these hundreds and hundreds of Freakoffs, some that would last for days at a time, some that could last for a long period of time. But I thought it was interesting, the whole drug conversation today, mainly because they even discussed withdrawing from drugs, especially because of the amount of drugs that both Cassie and both Diddy were taking, and even kind of insinuating that the reason that everything had happened at the 2016 or happened at the Intercontinental Hotel in 2016 was because just a few days earlier than that, Diddy was sick, and they were saying, they being the defense, was trying to paint it as Diddy was sick because he was going through withdrawals, and that made him agitated, that made him irritated. Meanwhile, at the same point, they were trying to say Cassie was insinuating doing these Freakoffs, kind of making it seem like she was asking for what had happened to her, as far as just him being so aggressive and violent with her, because again, we've all seen that surveillance video, but I definitely think the defense was trying to paint it as Diddy was going through withdrawals at this point, and that's why he became agitated and irritated, and that's why he had attacked her on that day. It's something that, you know, it shocked everyone when we had seen that video. Still shocking seeing it inside that courtroom. They didn't show it today during the cross-examination, but they definitely were talking about the 2016 incident, especially towards the end of the day today.
Yeah, I don't quite buy that one, right? The idea he was going through withdrawal kind of explains what happened in 2016. Didn't you say in the opening statement that video was indefensible? I feel like they might have stretched a little bit too much there. But look, the text messages, the conversations, communications, not ideal for a prosecution case. Not the end of the case, but not ideal for a prosecution case. So it's kind of a mixed bag in terms of, you know, how much the cross-examination helped the defense. I will say, I thought it was interesting, real quick on this, Elizabeth. Didn't they say, hey, you know how the prosecution was insinuating Diddy had all control over every aspect of her life, including her appearance? Well, the defense, didn't they seem to suggest, no, there might have been legitimate feedback he was giving, right?
Yeah, definitely. They were trying to paint Diddy kind of talking about his stature within the industry, essentially saying that, you know, Diddy was somebody who had a lot of rain in terms of the culture. A lot of people sought out his advice. A lot of people went to him for fashion advice. So they were trying to make it seem that, you know, Cassie, from her perspective, was saying that Diddy controlled every single aspect and manipulated every single aspect of her entire life. Meanwhile, the defense was trying to say, I mean, look, it wasn't just you going to Diddy for fashion advice. It was other people who were interested in taking fashion advice from him because, again, of just how big his stature was at the time. They were saying that he did so much for the culture and that he, you know, started a line like the Sean John line, and that was a very popular fashion line. And so the defense was, again, trying to make it seem that this wasn't manipulation. He didn't control what you wore, but you would ask him, you know, do I look good in this? What do you think of this outfit? And so, yes, to your point, Jesse, the defense was definitely trying to poke those holes into where they needed to poke them to kind of make the argument that this wasn't manipulation, this wasn't coercion, and this was something that two people just do normally in a relationship together.
So that brings us now to scheduling, right? So we are not done with the cross-examination. It's going to continue tomorrow, but Judge Arun Subramanian not happy about this, right? So two things I want to end on here. Talk to us about what the whole conversation was in court about actually scheduling Cassandra Ventura's testimony. And I believe we may have an answer as to who is going to be the next witness who is a major witness in this case. Talk to us about it.
I definitely think so. So during the lunch hour, I was talking about how the defense was saying that they needed an entire day of more cross-examination to a point that they could carry this all the way out into Monday. This was something that the government was visibly annoyed about because they were like, you know, we had had this scheduling talks for weeks, not even just weeks, but months. And they were trying to make the argument, they being the government, that they had known all along that Cassie needed to be off the stand by the end of the week. So they didn't appreciate that the defense was trying to drag this over into Monday. And so they came up with a solution, essentially, and just that they believe that the cross-examination beginning tomorrow will take up half the day, should wrap around the lunch hour. So still a few more hours of cross-examination to go through. As far as the redirect goes, the government affirmed today that the redirect may take no more than about 30 minutes or less. And so it looks like Cassie will finally be off the stand tomorrow if everything goes as planned. You just never know sometimes with the trial how long that these things can go. But yes, another big witness is being teed up kind of as we speak. And the government asked today, do we even need to bring in other witnesses tomorrow being Friday? And the judge was like, yes, get your other witnesses ready. And one of those big witnesses I can definitely say is going to be Dawn Richard, somebody who had filed civil claims against Diddy, somebody who had worked with Diddy for a number of years. She had worked for him for not even a number of years, for decades even. Somebody that Diddy himself, when the civil suit was filed, called her a friend and essentially said that he was disappointed that she had even filed this civil claim against him. And so the prosecution said today that she would be one of the next witnesses to be testifying against Diddy. And so it'll be interesting to see kind of how that'll all play out. And so she should be one of the next witnesses. If she's not directly after Cassie, she'll be the following witness for sure.
Yeah, and Elizabeth, I don't know if you have the answer to this. I'm not entirely sure. Is Dawn Richard one of the named alleged victims in this case? I say named. They're all using pseudonyms, except for, you know, Cassandra Ventura and maybe one other. Do we know if she's one of the alleged victims in this case that makes up sex trafficking or racketeering or anything like that?
I'm not necessarily sure, and that's mainly because when the prosecution was giving their opening statements, they had talked about the alleged victims, one being Cassie, one being Jane, that we presume to be alleged victim number 2, and then they were even talking about Mia, somebody who had worked for Diddy for a while, somebody that, according to the prosecution, Diddy allegedly sexually assaulted Mia while the two had worked together because she was somebody on her staff. So I'm not entirely sure if Dawn Richard is one of the victims that have been talked about, especially in the superseding indictment. But I definitely think she'll also be a very key witness in kind of piecing together her decades-long friendship that she had had with Diddy, as well as just kind of how he was, even just in a business aspect and a professional aspect as well too.
And I think she was a witness to some of the allegations of Cassandra Ventura. And if I'm right about that, that goes to further corroboration. So it's not just the security guard who testified. It's not just the male performer who testified. Now you'd have Dawn Richard, who I think I'm right? I think she had testified, I think she had alleged before that she witnessed alleged abuse of Cassie at the hands of Sean Combs.
Yep. Yeah, she did. In her civil claim, she alleged that she had seen Cassie with visible injuries on herself. She had said to Cassie that, according to her civil claim, that she had just wanted Cassie to be safe, essentially. She had said that she saw one instance where she was at Diddy's home. Cassie was cooking breakfast and Diddy threw a hot frying pan at her head. And so I definitely think she will be another central figure in kind of verifying Cassie's claims, especially the physical abuse that she endured. Not so much I believe about, the freak-offs and that extent, but definitely as far as the physical abuse goes, I think she'll be another key witness to kind of verify Cassie's claims.
And that would make sense she didn't know about it, because what we heard today was Cassandra Ventura was not very open about these freak-offs until she ultimately filed her lawsuit.